Morning, everyone. Still a couple of minutes. You'll see I've set it up so that your camera and your mic's muted. Once we've gone through the features, then I'll unmute everyone's mics for the question session. But you can chat in the meantime on the chat. That's it. That should be allowed. Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Can I just get a thumbs up to if you can see that I'm sharing my screen in the chat from someone? Okay, there we go. Thank you. And then you'll see your camera and your mics are muted. Once we've gone through the features, then we'll open the floor for a Q&A section, and then I'll unmute all the mics. Okay. So today's session we'll be discussing the new Q2 2022 release, all the updates that have been added. Hendrik will be taking us through those. For those of you who don't know us, but most of you do, it's myself, Miguel Coelho, and Hendrik Botmo does all the software development for VUMA. Okay. You should, if the video that's going to play will have sound. If you don't hear the sound, please let me know. I have shared it correctly. So just remember, you can download and install the full free version. It was released last week. So if you go onto the website, you fill in the form, you click download, you fill in your details, and it will open up the link so you can download the latest version.
Thank you for joining our webinar on the changes to the newly released 2022 Q2 edition of VUMA Network. We wish to start by thanking everyone that contributed to this latest version, either by suggesting new features, by pointing out bugs or discrepancies, or simply by supporting our program. It has been a few months since our last major release, so brace yourselves for a rundown on many new features, updates and enhancements, all aimed at making your job easier. Let us now begin by having a look at changes to the interface, starting with these side panels. On the normal hints section, you will notice that we have applied a splash of color in order to quickly distinguish between inputs and outputs. As a reminder, note that you can use these top icons to customize the hints, to increase or decrease the size of the text, to copy the text contents to the clipboard, or lastly, to copy an image of the hints. Also note that if you have an active multi-selection, the hints will render a summary of the branches inside the selection, which will include a newly added total NVP value. On the fire hints, we have changed the total fumes graph to rather display a stacked area graph. And we have also split the temperatures into a fume front value and an average temperature graph. We now also allow you to view the contaminants individually. You can copy these data points to Excel should you wish to create your own graphs. Or you can simply copy the image in order to paste it perhaps into a report. As with the other graphs, you can do further customization by clicking on the options underneath the context menu. Moving across to the right-hand panel, let us have a look at changes to the reference panel. The most apparent option here will be the re-enabling of the external references or XREF function. This function allows you to move the references out of the current VUMA model and into a local application folder. This will in turn dramatically decrease the file size of a model, which in turn also reduces the time to save a file. Should you wish to re-include the drawings, perhaps to send them to somebody else to review, simply reattach them using the file Save As dialog. Furthermore, you will notice that the current drawing layer will be bolded and rendered slightly bigger than the rest of the layers. This is quite useful since there are a few tools that only work on the currently active reference drawing layer. For instance, you can set the snapping to a reference layer, making the construction of an intricate section a lot easier. To demonstrate this, let us select a layer and then set the snapping mode and the continuous drawing mode. As I start following the lines, notice that it changes in terms of the length and the elevation. Alternatively, you can also set the drawing mode to rather convert the highlighted reference lines by once again simply left clicking on the lines as they become active. Recent updates to this feature have included the automatic joining of overlapping nodes. Alternatively, you can also convert a small section of references by first fencing it and then clicking on this convert option under the multi-select drop-down. On the References context menu, you will find a lot more options, including a new one here to quickly color a reference drawing using a custom depth interval. If you do not wish to set these custom intervals, you can rather use the straightforward depth by color option. When converting a reference, note that you can now choose to assign the reference drawing layer as layer 1, which is the original way, or rather use the default layer as said inside the tunnel dialog. Below the references, you will find the Layers and Level tab. Here, we have made it easier to edit the color of either a layer or a level by allowing you to simply click on the color cell and select a new color. To view these new layer colors, click on the Color by Layer button. Or you can highlight a single or multiple layers by using this highlight button. And on the context menu, you can quickly select all of the branches on the selected layers. A brand new addition is the Air Types option, which allows you to show or hide branches based on their respective air type, whether it be an intake or fresh air, dedicated or service return air, or even the newly introduced duct type. You can alter the color of the air type by clicking on its respective color cell. Another new tab is the Variations option. This tab is great at identifying inconsistencies in a model, something that is bound to happen due to the size and complexity of modern ventilation models. Select an option from the drop-down to have both the view and the data column update. You will note that the column values are automatically sorted in descending order, with the last column showing the number of branches sharing a property. You can click on the Select button on the top bar to add all these branches to the multi-select set. The Explorer tab, which is great in finding or highlighting specific branches, has been around for a while, but has now been enhanced by 1. Automatically refreshing the contents after a solve, and 2. By decreasing the refresh time required. Another form that has been around for a while but was in need for some TLC is the evaluation form. If you have not used it before, I would encourage you to try it out on any of your existing models, as you are guaranteed to find a few hidden issues. On the evaluation form, we have added the following new checks. First one is for long intake tunnels. A single long tunnel can have an impact on the heat transfer, since it will imply that the age of excavation in said tunnel is uniform, which is rather unlikely. For instance, a tunnel of 800 meters will not be the same age at the beginning and at the end. If the tunnel, however, is quite old, let's say more than 5 years, this effect is rather insignificant and you don't have to worry too much about splitting it into shorter sections. Scrolling down to model inputs, we will find a check for nearly or near vertical tunnels. Vertical tunnels should rather be modeled as shafts to have the correct heat transfer calculations with regards to the wetted perimeter. So identify those vertical tunnels and just change them to matching shafts. Scrolling down to workplaces, we have added a check for ROW workplaces or workplaces marked as returns. Both the VUMA reporter and its respective dashboards draw a clear distinction between intakes and returns. Having a workplace thus modeled as a return will discount its heat load from the other heat loads and should thus be done very carefully. As mentioned a bit earlier, we have introduced a duct specific branch type, which in turn allows for the easier editing and distinguishing of ducts compared to normal tunnels. Adding of new ducts, either by using the duct tool as I'm doing here, or by using the add ducts to multi-selection, will automatically set the relevant branches to the duct type. But for existing models, you will need to do a once-off conversion. You can do this by going to the Tools tab and then clicking on the Convert to Ducts button. On the next page, configure the settings to fit your model and then click on the OK button. If there were any branches that matches your inputs, they will automatically be marked as duct branches, and these can now be viewed individually using the aforementioned air types page. Other reasons for having ducts as a separate type is for ease of editing inside the reporter or for an overview of the ducts inside a staging model. A last note on ducts: when coloring branches by their respective air types, typically blue for intake and red for return, ducts will be colored in turquoise. This can make it difficult to distinguish whether the duct has been marked as an intake or a return. To override the duct specific color, go to the Home Display Settings form and uncheck the Uniform Duct Color mode. Now reapply the intake return color, and ducts will now also follow the red or blue intake return coloring convention. Let's just revisit this display settings form quickly to check for a couple of new changes. Under the theme section, we have added 3 office inspired themes. To change the theme, simply select a new one from the list. These darker themes are particularly suited to working in low light conditions, such as in the evenings. Another new addition is this checkbox to set whether branch lengths are to be recalculated after being split. Normally, this is the behavior that you would want, but if you have a special micro model, it can be useful to disable this setting. Okay, let us close the display settings form and have a look now at some of the other user interface enhancements. Clicking on the Quick View button, you will notice that we have added a property sheet to the right hand side. Quite often what happens is that you take screenshots of your model for a report, but at different times. This in turn can easily result in noticeable differences to the look and feel of these images. Some might perhaps have their branches rendered bigger, where they can also differ in terms of the visibility of text, nodes, 3D icons, billboards, background colors, etc. By using the Apply to All button, you can now easily have all of your saved views configured to use the same settings. Under the display option, you will see that screen recording has also made a welcome return. The new recording options are a lot more streamlined than before, and they offer better quality with a lower file size. A bonus is that you can now also record your voice, which can be super handy. Note that the screen recorder currently only records the primary screen. So if you're using a dual screen system, please make sure that VUMA is running on the primary screen before starting your recording. Moving over to the Libraries tab, let's have a look at the Fire and Rescue screen. Over here, we have added a button to clear all of the existing Fire and Rescue icons, and under the Settings option, you can customize how many paths should be considered. Since a large network can offer potentially hundreds or thousands of path variations to get from point A to point B, limiting the path finding can result in a much faster answer. Behind the scenes, we have also improved the path finding further by using the actual drawn length of controls to better determine a travel time. Going to the Profiles button, we have added an option to import profiles from another VUMA model. Click and point to the required VUMA model in order to import all of its profiles. Going to the Fan library, more specifically creating a new fan by using the digitizer, we have added two extra options. First off, an option to show a zoomed in or magnified view, which is quite useful when entering finely scaled curves. By default, we also render a green grid or guidelines to help you set up the power or efficiency curves. But as it can quickly become cluttered, you can now choose not to show these lines. And quickly on the design criteria, we have added a new property here to check for a maximum duct velocity. Last one on the libraries, if we go to the rock library, you will see that a custom color can now be applied to each individual rock type. This is quite useful in mines where you might have different reef types, such as Merensky and UG2. Click on additional colors to view the rock colors, or use the Variations tab as mentioned earlier. Okay, now let's open a tunnel editor and let's see what is new in here. Firstly, you will notice that we've added the option to solve from inside a branch editor. We can modify, for instance, the branch's dimension, and then let's head over to the Results tab. We will click on Solve, and now we can see the resulting change in, amongst others, its velocity. And on the left hand side of the branch editor, we've added a button to allow for the quick editing of layers without having to exit the branch editor first. As for the screenshot function, we have introduced a new method whereby all of your dialog screenshots will automatically be gathered for later use. To demonstrate, I will change the tabs and click on the screenshot each time. Once you are done, if you go to the screenshot icon here below, you will find all of the screenshots, and now you can choose what to do with them further. Right, jumping back to the main screen, let's move to the References tab on top. Here, you will notice that we've added an option to allow you to import annotations from another VUMA model. As with profiles, simply click and point to the VUMA model that contains the other annotations. On the construction front, we've also been busy with several improvements. First off, if your default control manager is set to be a tunnel reduced area and you draw a new control manager from an existing tunnel, that tunnel reduced area will automatically inherit the size of said tunnel. Let me draw a couple of tunnels and then edit their individual sizes. Now I will draw a new control manager, and once done, check that the sizes were indeed carried across. Another great feature is the option to format paint an entire selection. Start off by making your selection and then use the format painter. Set the source bronze and then apply to a bronze inside the selection. You will notice that all bronzes inside the selection has now been updated with the source bronze data. A last note, if we look at the format painter screen again, is that we've added a friction factor option. Now there are of course quite a few ways to multi-select, like dragging a fence around your bronzes or by using the Select Similar tool. Speaking of which, on the Select Similar tool, we have updated the library fan selection to also consider the fan configuration, like the input, the layout, and the number of fans. This tool has also been updated to consider whether the bronze is a duct or a tunnel. When drawing in new development ends, little consideration might be given at that moment to its size relative to its connecting voltages. This in turn can be a tedious task to resolve. Fortunately, we have added a button to do exactly that. So, if you have finished putting in all of your development ends, click on this button over here to have the development headings match the size of their connected tunnels. Okay, now it's time to have a look at good old faithful Reporter, which is still one of the most powerful tools inside of VUMA. To kick off, under the fan inputs, we have added the fan curve variation column. And for the first time, you can now edit fan bronze data directly from inside the Reporter, whether it be the assigned library fan, the speed of the fan, the status, or even its configuration. And if you were to head on over to the fan summary section, you will notice a better breakdown of the fans and their placement, including auxiliary fans. As for fixed flows in Reporter, we have added a column indicating whether or not it was marked as a regulating control. You can edit this property directly from here as well. A quick side note, on fixed flows, you can now also temporarily disable the fixed flow, perhaps if you just want to check something without having to manually remove the fixed flow. Jumping to the stope summary, Here we'll see that we've added a row for rock heat load per unit production. And lastly, you can now also edit development and stope explosives via the reporter. Another great strength for VUMA lies in its dashboards. These have also been given a upgrade. Let us start with the histogram dashboard. On it, we have added stope velocity and the branch count of the working places. We have also added some statistical info at this bottom bar, including a weighted average and the 90th percentile. Another great improvement is the option to limit the display data to only the multi-selected set. So make your selection, go into the dashboard, say yes, and only that set will be displayed. Now, as a reminder, you can also do the inverse and create a multi-selection by first clicking on the relevant stack bar. Okay, let's move on to the heat loads chart. On the energy balance tab, you can specify a custom leakage value. This can be very useful when testing the effect of different leakages on your energy balance. And having a quick look at the mass flow balances dashboard, we have added the pressure drop column to further assist you in the drill down of data. Okay, I think this is enough for one session. There are some other improvements as well, such as major enhancements to the Chinese translations, better handling of stages, as well as updates to billboards and fan icon rendering. But I think I will leave the discovery of it up to you. As always, please send us your feedback, whether it be a bug, a new feature request, or just an explanation that is required for something. Thanks for watching and happy modeling.
Thank you, Hendrik. If there's any questions, I'm busy allowing all the mics. So you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask a question, or raise your hand and ask a question. Or type a question, whichever you prefer. There we go. Mike? It says Mike guest.
Yeah, morning to everybody. Thanks for the webinar. It was really interesting. I just wanted to ask you, in the equipment libraries, the global library is quite extensive. Do you think that at some point in the future there'd be a way for, I don't know, a collaborative sort of effort to add from various other models some additional rock and particularly fan profiles to the global libraries? Because what I found is I struggle quite a bit in finding and digitizing fan curves from various different suppliers.
Okay, so for the fans, there is a global library for the fans. I don't know if you've seen it. If you go under import, get to it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, but for some reason there's just let me have a look here. The 2, 4, 6, 7. I've got 7 in the library.
Those are the 7 default ones. I'm just opening VUMA, and then if you go under the library import, It can say it's from global. I'm just waiting for my VUMA to launch.
Okay, I see online.
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
So there's
Is
a
that
whole bunch
new,
there.
new feature then?
It's been a while, around for a while, but yeah, we update that as we get new information. I think that thing was like last updated about a year or 18 months ago. Yeah.
Okay. So, like, is there any way for, whether it's a sub-consultant or it's, if I, for instance, digitize a Kaufman 1600 contra-rotating and I maybe wanted to share that in a global repository, would anything like that happen in the future?
Maybe if I can jump in here. Thanks for the question. A while ago, we did write to a couple of fan vendors. So we asked them for catalogs, which we've added. And by all means, I mean, we can repeat that process. And if you do have fans that you wish us to add and you don't mind sending us the models, by all means, we will add it. Maybe it's not an smooth way at the moment, but what we typically do is just write to the vendors and ask them for catalogs.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Mike, what you can also do is typically the guys have a blank VUMA network file with the library fans that they always use. And then from a new VUMA file, you can import fans that are in a pre-existing model so that you don't have to always re-import. So you'll import that like Kaufman contra-rotating fan once, and you'll just keep importing it into your other models. Putting it online globally just makes it available to anyone who uses VUMA, which is also of great benefit.
Yeah, I suppose that's where I was going, just sort of save time in the industry if you're just looking for, a particular fan. If it's available online, then, that would be a great sort of benefit.
No, you're correct. That is.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
Yeah. Just a quick question. You've recorded this. My brain was having trouble keeping up with my eyes. Where are you going to save it?
So we are going to upload it to YouTube. Most people have access to that. I can also then send you a OneDrive link via email that you can then download the video, the recording.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And I haven't seen any more questions. There we go. Enver?
Thanks, Miguel. I see the manual has been updated as well. So everything that was discussed in this tutorial webinar is all of that in the manual as well.
Hi, Enver. Thanks for the question. Yes, we did update the manual to speak to it, but we're actually also in conjunction just doing updated training YouTube videos. So we found that the YouTube videos actually get more traction than the manual. But definitely, if you do encounter anything that you don't understand, you're welcome to ask us, and then we'll just send you an update on that as well.
Maybe to add to that, the new tutorial videos are going to have a voiceover, a digital voiceover, but there'll be a voiceover. We found a lot of users have requested that. It helps them keep track of the video when they're watching, and when you're trying to watch, listen, and do. So we've added that, or we're busy adding that over the coming months.
Yeah, thanks. And just maybe an observation. I've seen that the fire solver works a lot better, especially for larger models. So I think that's a great improvement as well. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know Hendrik and Drickus have been putting quite a bit of effort into to improve it. So glad to hear you're finding it easier to use or quicker to use. So any last questions or queries or comments? Anything else that maybe you're not sure if we might not have discussed it, but maybe VUMA does do it, or that we can focus on for the next webinar?
Nothing from my side. I'd just like to say thanks for the webinar, and I find the tutorials in that really useful. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, then, the absence of questions, guys, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for making your time available. What I'll do is I'll put this on OneDrive and just share it to everyone in this, share the link to everyone in this email, into this chat, so that you have access, and then it'll only be uploaded to YouTube in the next, tomorrow's a public holiday, on Thursday. Okay, great. Thank you. Have a good day further.
Thanks, guys.
Someone in the chat.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Hendrik. Thank you, Miguel. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.